We try to take what could be a really overwhelming experience and break it down.
We don't want to lose everything.
So I respond anywhere in the hospital where someone discloses to their medical provider or social worker that they're experiencing intimate partner violence, sexual assault, or just feeling like something isn't right. And my role as an advocate and a social worker here is to support that individual in the choices that they want to make that day, but also really try to unpack what's going on, provide them with resources and education as far as what's available to them in the community.
To get good evidence collection, it's 72 hours. God forbid you was held captive and I didn't see you until 6 days later. I can still do what I have to do to help you, and the lab will do what it has to do to help that process. But the gold standard of trying to make sure everything is done is 72 hours. So if 24 hours after it and you're feeling embarrassed because, well, I was drinking, please do not feel embarrassed. Come.
What normally happens is if a call comes into our dispatch center, we have the 13 patrol officers that are the victim witness specialists. They will actually respond to the scene. If it's at 3 o'clock in the morning, they'll respond to the scene and get the victim started with resource information, identify any needs that they have. If they do choose the court process, we've actually set up meetings. We have a Commonwealth attorney that's devoted just to our campus. If there's a need for a protective order, we make it so that the survivor does not have to go to the magistrate's office. The officer or myself will actually go and take out the protective order on their behalf so that they do not have to tell their story again.
My name is Tammy Slavinsky, and I'm the Assistant Director of Sexual Assault, Intimate Partner Violence, and Stalking Advocacy Services at Virginia Commonwealth University.
And my name is Kaylin Tingle. I'm the LGBTQ Violence Prevention Health Educator.
So we support survivors by believing them and providing support, but then we also refer them to counseling because it's important to establish, treatment goals, and if somebody has some underlying mental health issues, we want to make sure that those are taken care of. And if they need assistance with medications or therapy type support groups, we want to make sure that they get all the services that they can.
They're driving the car. They're making the decisions. I'm just helping them navigate how to get there. So connecting them to whatever resources they need. Sometimes that has to do with academics and medical and legal needs, but sometimes it could be really specific to that survivor. And my role is just to help them connect to that service or that resource, do whatever research I need to do to find them a good resource, and then help them navigate whatever path they choose.
In terms of resources, we provide referrals to different offices on campus that they may need, whether it be counseling services, student health, potentially VCUPD. We connect them with the Title IX coordinator. We also provide accompaniment to hospitals and also through the legal system to get them emergency protective orders.
Well, I'm Tanetta. I work at the YWCA of Richmond. I actually work at the confidential shelter location. And I work with survivors of domestic and sexual violence. And when they come to us, we provide them with case management, which can look very different depending on what the survivor has been through.
I'm Sarah Filer, and I work for Richmond Victim Witness in the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. We work with any victim of crime throughout the entirety of the criminal justice process. We help them with court explanations, giving them information about their case, helping them with criminal injuries compensation fund, VineLink. We do any kind of crisis intervention or crisis counseling that they may need. Basically just offer support and encouragement through the time that they spend with us here in the courthouse.
I'm Detective Mac Adams. I'm with the Richmond Police Department. I'm currently assigned to the Youth and Family Crimes Unit, which means I deal with domestic violence, child sexual assault, child abuse, those kind of things. I did work in aggravated assault and sex crimes and in homicide for a few years. I've been with the department almost 28 years now. My role is to investigate the crime itself and to identify an offender and to hold that offender accountable. It's as simple as that. The unfortunate part is I have to ask some questions sometimes of survivors that may seem like I don't believe what they're saying or I don't believe their story. I ask difficult questions because I have to. I may not be the last one to ask you a specific question, but I want to be the first one to ask you that question.
I can call Mac Adams and I can say, I have a survivor here that is right on the edge of sort of maybe wanting to pursue her legal options and getting the criminal justice system involved, but they're really scared. Can you just come talk to them? And he has come to the emergency room and sat there for hours at a time with a patient saying, you don't have to tell me the perpetrator's name. In fact, if you do, that would kind of change the process a little bit. But you can tell me what's going on, and I can tell you what your options are, and we can kind of hash out, what your fears are surrounding this, and I can give you my honest opinion on, what the recourse would be, which is so helpful because people having a hypothetical conversation like that with someone makes all the difference. Otherwise, you feel like you're just going from 0 to 60, and all of a sudden you may have lost some sort of sense of control over the process. So having him as a resource has been amazing. And I think that's what Richmond is so good at, is we have all just become really close-knit. We see each other at sexual assault response team meetings. We see each other at the campus-based collaborative meetings over sexual assault. We see each other in court. And we can call on each other because we all do different things and we're all valuable for different reasons. And when you're able to sort of bring that full picture in for someone, especially when they're in a crisis situation, there's really nothing more comforting than that as far as saying, all right, here's the medical piece. I'm talking to a law enforcement officer, and you're really getting all of your options explained.
The first thing that came to mind is we believe you, we support you, and you're not alone.
The first thing that popped in my head was you will be okay. Just simply naming it, knowing that that's what happened, and seeking help, you'll be okay.
And law enforcement things have to go step by step. A lot of that is because it just needs to go that way, and some of it is actually because if I don't do it that way, I'm going to forget it. So if you say, hey, Mac, how come we're doing this, this, and this? I'll explain it to you. Just ask us. We're not the enemy. We're on your side. We want to prove this. We want to hold the offender accountable. We want to see him go to jail, because I get no more satisfaction than day in seeing somebody go to jail for the rest of his natural life for something that he should have not done in the first place. That means I can go home and sleep good. And that's what I want to do.
The one thing that I want survivors to know is that it's never their fault. So it's not your fault, and that there are resources available to support you, and that everybody responds to trauma differently. I know that's two things. I think a lot of times people think it's supposed to look a certain way, but there is no look.
Whether it be healing or the criminal justice process is not a short process, and that here at the VCU Police Department, there will be someone with them every step of the way to make sure that they can get through both the healing and the court process.
If they receive a negative reaction from a family member or a friend, that certainly here in Richmond as a community, there are a lot of resources and a huge support network. So if you feel shut down by anything, particularly maybe by someone that you tell that doesn't put their faith in you, that we have a whole network of really, really caring people in Richmond, whether it's through healthcare or local domestic violence and sexual violence agencies.
We work very hard to make sure that people can move forward as best possible at a rate and speed that is important for them, and that we really care about the work that we do and care about all of our students.
Medications, healthcare is expensive. Let's be real. There's a bill that comes with any hospital visit. Our team tries to minimize that as much as humanly possible, and I think we do a very good job. I do not want people to feel that if they come here, they're going to have this whopping hospital bill.
I want survivors to know that they are intrinsically valuable and eternally loved, and that there is grace and hope and freedom beyond their circumstances. People can't define them. Situations can't define them. There's more to their life than something horrible and horrific that happened to them. So I want them to know that, and that if they need help, that's what we're here to do. And
their story is unique, and they can definitely help inspire more people to share their story. So I guess strength that they are strong, and that they can definitely make people more aware by having the courage and strength to share their stories with other people and let people know that this is a growing epidemic, and that they can get help for it, and that there are resources out there, and that they're not alone.
Just start by believing your friend. There's a video that's big around Facebook. It's called "It's Not About the Nail." Just a girl talking about her head pounding and all these other things, and her boyfriend's going, "You got this nail in your head." It's not about the nail. They don't need you to solve their problem. No one can solve the problem right then. They need you to listen and be there for them. That's what you have to do when this happens. Listen to your friend, be there for your friend, provide support for your friend, do whatever they ask you to do, as long as you're comfortable with it. But don't try to solve their problem for them. Solving their problem is going to take a long time, and it's going to involve a lot of people, and you're not going to solve it sitting on the sofa in 20 minutes.
Only 2 to 8% are false reports, and that's the same as any other crime. So just knowing that if a survivor discloses that they've been assaulted, that they're telling the truth. And so when you believe a survivor, that has been the number one indicator for them being able to access other services.
As an individual, I think it's important to be having this conversation with your family, with your friends. I think it's important to understand what it means to be a bystander, and to know that if you see something while you're out that makes you uncomfortable, whether it's you're out at a bar or something like that, to know how as an individual you might be able to prevent something from it happening.
As far as prevention goes, just watch it for your friends. We would rather come out 1,000 times for nothing than have to come out one time and something bad had happened. When we could have prevented and had a phone call an hour ago, scared someone off.
Preventing sexual assault would be one, knowing what it is. So a lot of times we don't have a clear understanding of what it entails to be sexually assaulted. Sometimes we only think of rape. Sexual assault includes any unwanted, unreciprocated sexual interaction. Another part is having those conversations about healthy relationships. So what does it mean to have healthy sexuality? How to identify with your sexual orientation, and how to express yourself. So being able to say, I like this, but I don't like that.
And then just modeling healthy relationships, and what a healthy relationship looks like, healthy sexuality. Some of those things aren't really, unfortunately, modeled for children growing up, and if they see an unhealthy relationship where, for example, in stalking, if I just keep trying and trying and trying and keep texting and following somebody around, eventually they're going to love me. That's one message that is obviously flawed, but that also could lead to stalking behavior. So there's a lot of different things that aren't modeled in a healthy way. Except for Frozen.
Right. And Frozen, he asks, "Can I kiss you?"
She asks. Oh. Wait. He says, he's like, yeah, I know. I showed in training, he's like, well, are you okay with it? She's like, yes! And she grabs him and kiss. It's great. So.
I think as a community, what we really need to do is have the messaging about sexual assault prevention really come from that community-based level. It's amazing that we have these celebrities and the White House now that come out with these PSAs and this messaging, but we really need to bring it down to a community level and feel like as a community together that we will not stand for sexual assault, and have that messaging more available and visible throughout the community. And I think that that's something that we can do as collaboratives, as professionals in the field, but that's also something we can do as individuals.
Make sure that you're connected enough with the community to point them in the right direction. A friend might not always be the very best person to help another friend. They might need someone more equipped and better trained. So staying connected with places that can serve them the very best way possible.
It could be just Googling what the Richmond Regional Abuse Hotline number is, or having knowledge of those resources, or having maybe, a brochure laying around that you can just grab and give to that person, but not forcing them to do what you think is best. So educating them about what their options are, and maybe offering to, go with them if they're going to go to the doctor and get tested for STIs, or if they're going to go to see an advocate at the well, offering to go with them, but not telling them this is what you should do, or not saying, okay, I'm going to go make an appointment for you now, unless they ask you to do that for them.
Just providing them a choice is important, because their choices were taken from them when they were assaulted or abused. So the more you can promote them having options to take the steps that will work best for them, because, for example, with domestic violence or dating abuse, if you talk someone into leaving a relationship, if it wasn't their decision, they're less likely to follow through or to stay with it because it wasn't their decision. So it's using an empowerment framework instead of telling somebody what to do.
Listen to the person. Don't pass judgment. Don't blame. Listen to what they have to say, and bring them to the nearest health facility. And let them be evaluated so they can make sure there are no medical or physical injuries that need to be treated.
And really being empathetic when someone has reported sexual assault or some sort of trauma in their lives, and not being suspicious of them, believing them, and having a kind heart, I think is important to help people move forward.
No victim blaming. Definitely being supportive of the person who experienced the attack. Active listening, understanding that no one experiences trauma the same.
And just learning about, sexual assault and what it entails, and definitely providing more resources and opportunity for any victim who has experienced sexual or domestic violence.
Sexual assault is a hard thing. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to think about. I think when it comes up, we get this visceral reaction about it. And I think to a certain degree that discomfort is right and appropriate. That's how we should feel about it. But I think a lot of times that discomfort fosters kind of this willful ignorance almost. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to talk about it. So I think one of the things that we can do as a community is continue the discussion that takes place through initiatives like Start by Believing or other things that are happening. Bring awareness to the subject, make it not so scary, not so awful.
Challenging ourselves, it might mean educating ourselves around what red flags look like in relationships so that we can notice those when they're in our relationships or when they're in our friends' relationships. Challenging ourselves around educating about consent, about what consent is, about how to have those conversations with our partners, and challenging others when we hear that they're not having those conversations with the people in their lives. And then also thinking about that this problem is part of the larger issue of sort of intersecting forces of oppression. So challenging ourselves to speak up when we hear racist jokes or sexist jokes or homophobic jokes or language, starting at that kind of interpersonal level, and starting with the language and all the way up to, challenging media stereotypes and, challenging the laws that we have on the books and being really critical about that.